Okay, let's unpack this. We've got a really special deep dive today, custom made for one of our listeners who shared just a fantastic collection of sources.
Hmm.
This isn't just about language learning in general. It's a very human story,
Yeah.
really, about overcoming this, well, this incredibly common struggle,
Yeah,
actually understanding spoken English.
that's right. These sources, they trace the journey of a young woman named Leela. And like so many learners, she really hit a wall with her listening skills. She
Yeah.
had the grammar down, the vocabulary. She could read, she could write. But native speakers, fast talkers, different accents, it all just sort of blurred together, sounded like noise.
Absolutely. To that really frustrating gap, isn't it? Where the rules you learn in a book just don't seem to prepare you for the reality of how people actually talk.
Mm.
Words get mushed together, sounds change, the rhythm's all wrong. She felt embarrassed, kind of lost, like she'd missed some secret instruction manual somewhere.
And that feeling, that sense of being lost or maybe just not good enough, even after putting in the hours studying,
Mm.
it's incredibly demotivating.
Well, laugh
It's a barrier that stops a lot of learners, prevents them from progressing or even just, enjoying the language.
So our mission today is to really go deep into Leela's story. We're going to try and pull out the specific techniques, the mindset shifts, those aha moments that took her from that place of feeling totally lost
Right.
to being genuinely confident, connecting with people, traveling, and eventually actually becoming a teacher herself. It's quite a transformation.
Yeah, we're looking for those practical strategies, the things embedded in her experience, the things that you, the listener, can maybe grab hold of and apply to your own language journey.
Exactly.
Mm.
So let's start right at the beginning with that initial struggle that the sources detail so vividly.
Well, Leela's frustration was immense, really. She felt like she'd done everything right. The grammar exercises, memorizing vocab lists. She'd even taken an online class.
The usual suspects.
Exactly. But when she tried to watch an English movie or just listen to someone speaking naturally, it felt like her brain just couldn't keep up.
The sources even mentioned this moment, her whispering to her cat, Milo,
Right.
asking him why it was so hard, wondering if maybe books just weren't the answer for listening skills. That quiet desperation, it's just so relatable, isn't it?
It really highlights a crucial point. Listening isn't just about knowing words on a page. It's about processing sound live in real time.
Yeah.
Books give you the ingredients, maybe, but listening, that's the actual cooking.
And that quiet moment, questioning things, seems to have been the catalyst, the trigger for a real shift in her approach.
Mm-hmm.
She decided she needed a real way, as she put it, to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first concrete action she took was, well, powerful in its simplicity. She made a list.
Yes, she actually titled it My English Listening Mission. And on it, she wrote down her specific problems. Things like, speakers talk too fast, I can't catch individual words, I feel nervous, I don't know how to practice every day. Really specific stuff.
And then, crucially, right next to those problems, she listed her goals. Enjoy movies without subtitles, understand native speakers easily, feel confident when listening.
Right.
Just the act of naming the problem and the desired outcome, the sources call it her first small win. It gave her clarity, a target to aim for.
It took that vague cloud of frustration and turned it into something defined, a challenge she could actually tackle. And that's when she stumbled upon something that would, change everything for her.
Which one?
An English Through Stories book that came with audio recordings.
Okay, the turning point. So, learning through stories, simple, engaging stories, but with clear, slow audio. That must have really resonated with her desire for something more natural than just grammar drills.
Exactly. And this is where she discovered the absolute magic of repetition.
Okay, tell me about that.
The sources describe her listening to the audio for that very first story, the first time through. Maybe she understood 30%, still felt pretty lost.
Right, which could easily make you give up.
But she didn't stop there. And this is so key. She listened again, maybe got 40% that time. Still not great. But she kept going.
Just kept hitting play on the same story.
She listened to the same exact story every single day for a whole week. And by the end of that week, she understood nearly 100% of it. She could almost hear the sentences in her head even when the audio wasn't playing.
Wow. Think about that jump. From 30% to almost 100 on the same material in just 1 week.
Yeah.
It wasn't just memorizing the plot. Her ears were literally training. They were learning the rhythm, the pronunciation, how words link together in natural speech.
It wasn't just studying anymore, as the sources put it. It was active listening, and crucially, she was learning with joy.
That joy factor is huge, isn't it? It comes from seeing, or rather hearing, that tangible progress.
Absolutely. That repetition wasn't tedious because she could feel her understanding growing day by day. It built her confidence, built trust in her own ability to learn through sound.
And making that listening a daily habit like brushing your teeth, the source says that really cemented it. It wasn't some big occasional task.
Yeah.
It became part of her routine.
Exactly. That seemingly small change, just consistent daily engagement, built such a powerful foundation for her.
Okay, so she had this amazing breakthrough with repetition using these stories.
Yeah.
But that naturally leads to the next challenge, right? What happens when you've listened to that story 100 times? How do you keep the momentum going with new stuff every day?
Right. And this led her to her next tool, music.
Ah, okay. Songs.
Yeah, she found resources, things like Learn English with Songs, which conveniently provided the lyrics alongside clear audio. This brought in a whole new element of fun and, memorability. It felt different from the stories.
Music is just so powerful for language learning, isn't it? The melodies, the rhythm, they just help phrases stick in your head somehow.
Totally. She'd listen, read the lyrics, even sing along. The sources say she felt silly sometimes, but it didn't matter. Her English Vibes playlist became her daily soundtrack. Artists like Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, the Beatles, stuff she enjoyed.
So it wasn't just structured listening practice anymore.
No, and she also remembered something a teacher had told her way back. If you want to improve your listening, surround yourself with English.
Okay.
This sparked the idea of weaving English into the very fabric of her daily life, not just in dedicated study time.
So this wasn't about finding more time to study, but about transforming her environment.
Exactly. Simple little changes like setting her phone's language to English or watching YouTube videos. And this is key, not just language lessons, but content she genuinely liked.
Like what?
Oh, travel vlogs, cooking shows, funny cat videos, whatever she was interested in. Starting with subtitles on, then pushing herself to turn them off.
Making it passive, almost.
Kind of, yeah. She started listening while doing other things, cooking dinner, cleaning the house, going for a walk. Every spare moment became an opportunity for her ears just to hear English floating around. It's about creating this immersive bubble, even if you're not living in an English-speaking country.
The sources mention a specific example, right?
Right.
Watching a London travel vlog.
Yes. The British accent felt really fast and unfamiliar at first, but she applied that same repetition technique she learned from the stories. Watched it with subtitles, then watched it again without, then maybe just listened to the audio while she was doing something else.
And did it work?
That persistence paid off. Eventually, she understood it, and it brought this little smile to her face. It proved to her that even challenging content could become understandable if she just kept at it, using different approaches.
And all these small, consistent exposures, they started to lead to something really subtle, but incredibly significant. She started thinking in English, spontaneously. Like she'd see a flower, and the word flower would just pop into her head without translating from her native language first.
Ah, that's a huge milestone. It's a sign the language is becoming internalized, bypassing that conscious translation step. And then came that amazing moment on the bus.
Oh, yes. Tell us about that.
She overheard some tourists chatting away, and she realized she was understanding every single word they said.
Wow.
Even though she was apparently too shy to actually talk to them, the feeling she described, her heart dancing, that's just powerful.
Like a concrete proof
Yeah.
that all that quiet daily effort was actually working in the real world.
Absolutely. And she realized something important then. She didn't need to be perfect to understand. She just needed to keep listening. That little phrase became a kind of mantra for her, a source of quiet strength.
So by the end of this phase, she had these new lessons scribbled in her notebook. Things like repetition is magic, music is fun, and makes things stick. English is literally everywhere if you just open your ears. And maybe the most important one, keep going, even if you don't understand every single thing.
Those insights show this growing understanding, this shift in perspective. Proficiency isn't about achieving perfection. It's about consistent engagement and actually finding some joy in the process.
Building on that newfound confidence, she then moved into the next phase of her journey, which was all about linking that listening skill more directly to actually speaking.
Right. This was meeting a language partner, Sarah, from Canada for a proper conversation. And this step brought back a lot of that initial nervousness.
Oh, I bet. The fear of making mistakes, of not understanding her, of just feeling inadequate.
That fear is so universal for language learners, isn't it? What if I say it wrong? What if she doesn't understand me? What if I just freeze? It can be totally paralyzing.
So how did she handle it?
Well, the sources say she consciously pushed through that fear by remembering her progress. She thought about the stories she'd mastered, the songs she could sing along to, the vlogs she understood now, those tourists on the bus. She drew courage from her listening successes.
That's smart. Using past wins to fuel present courage.
Exactly. And the conversation, she might have spoken slowly, maybe used simpler words, but she spoke. And it flowed, It wasn't fancy, but it was real. It was a connection.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But even after that positive experience, there was still a lingering feeling.
Yeah, she hadn't understood every single word Sarah said. Sometimes she just kind of smiled and nodded along. And this led her to write down a really crucial question in her notebook. Do I need to understand 100% to be good at listening?
Oh, that's such an important question for any learner. It's so easy to get bogged down trying to catch every single word, isn't it?
Totally. And this is where she found a quote that really clicked for her, gave her permission to kind of relax about it. It was something like, you don't need to understand every word. You only need to catch the meaning. Focus on the message, not the details.
Letting those words sink in, as the source says.
Yeah.
Wow, that must have felt incredibly freeing. It totally shifts the goalposts, doesn't it? From perfect decoding to just successful communication.
Exactly. It's about seeing the forest, not getting lost counting every single tree. And armed with that new perspective, she took another brave step.
Which was?
Joining a local English meetup group.
Okay, so with other learners.
Yeah.
From different countries, maybe. That sounds like a potentially safer space to practice.
It really was.
Yeah.
The sources emphasized the supportive atmosphere. People made mistakes, they paused, they searched for words, used simple language, but everyone was there for the same reason, and they really listened to each other. There was no judgment.
And Leela felt comfortable enough there to share something.
Yeah, just a simple thought about nature being her favorite language. And she was met with smiles and nods, positive reactions. This experience really reinforced for her that English is not just about understanding words, it's about sharing ideas, feelings, dreams.
It connects the skill back to its fundamental human purpose connection.
And she realized something vital then. Listening helped her understand others, which in turn gave her the confidence to try speaking more. And speaking more made her listen more deeply, really trying to grasp what the other person was trying to convey.
It's a beautiful feedback loop, isn't it?
Both.
A symbiotic relationship between listening and speaking.
Totally. By the end of this period, she'd kind of codified her listening truths in her notebook. Real listening isn't about catching every single word. It's okay to ask someone to repeat themselves. It's definitely okay not to be perfect. And fundamentally, listening is about making a connection with another person.
Those truths represent such a significant shift in mindset, moving away from just linguistic accuracy towards, well, communicative effectiveness and genuine human connection.
Right. And speaking of connection, a message from her language partner, Sarah, hinting about maybe discussing a podcast that seems to have nudged her towards the next level of challenge.
Podcasts. Okay, so this is a whole different listening environment, right? Faster, often more informal, conversational, and crucially, no visual cues like lips or gestures.
Exactly. The sources describe her first attempt with a podcast, something like everyday English stories, and how it felt like a race. It seemed too fast, too real compared to the stories and songs she'd been using.
I can totally relate to that feeling. It's like suddenly being thrown into the deep end of the linguistic pool.
But she didn't just sink. She apparently paused it, took a deep breath, and consciously reminded herself she didn't need to understand everything right away. She applied her strategy again, restarted it, but this time focused only on catching the keywords.
Okay, so not trying to grab every single word flying past, but training herself to sort of skim with her ears, picking out the anchor points of the conversation.
Exactly. Just trying to get the main gist, hearing fragments like, first job, felt nervous, made a big mistake. Just piecing together the core message first.
And then she'd layer on the repetition.
Yeah, maybe listen again for overall meaning, then perhaps use a transcript or subtitles if they were available just to catch more details, and finally, listen again to the audio only to really reinforce it.
And the sources describe this practice as having an almost physical effect on her. Her ears were adjusting, waking up, like training a muscle.
That's a perfect analogy, and Sarah's feedback reinforced this idea. Podcasts are like gyms for your ears. They offer this kind of high-intensity training for processing speed and understanding natural, unscripted language.
So podcasts became her new daily workout. Maybe 15 minutes while walking, another 15 while cleaning, repeating sections that were particularly tricky.
And this consistent exposure to faster, more natural speech started to yield really noticeable results in her everyday life.
Like what?
She started understanding things she overheard, like the radio in a taxi. She found herself catching jokes in English TV shows without needing the subtitles anymore. And incredibly, she even started dreaming in English sometimes.
Wow, dreaming in English. It's often seen as a sign of true language integration, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
But then came a major real-world test.
Yeah.
A job interview in English for a promotion at her part-time job.
Oh, wow. High stakes. This wasn't just practice anymore. This was a situation with real consequences. The pressure must have been immense.
Huge. And she prepared intensely, really focusing her listening practice specifically on this challenge. She listened to podcasts about job interviews, watched YouTube videos about interview skills, practiced her answers out loud.
Did she record herself?
Yes, and this is often a painful but incredibly powerful step. The sources say she kind of cringed listening back to her own voice, noticing her accent, her grammar mistakes.
Oh, yeah. Listening to yourself is always awkward.
Yep.
But did she hear anything else?
Yes. Amidst all those perceived imperfections, she also heard her strength, her clarity, her progress. It was this crucial step in learning to be her own kind listener. She reminded herself, don't aim to be perfect. Aim to be prepared and calm.
That's fantastic advice. So how did the actual interview go?
Well, during the interview itself, despite the nerves, she found she understood the questions being asked, and she managed to answer them clearly and calmly, even if her English wasn't absolutely perfect.
And her answer about her strengths and weaknesses was apparently quite brilliant.
It really was. When asked, she said listening was actually her biggest strength now, and that understanding fast English had been her biggest challenge, but it was one she actively practiced overcoming every single day using podcasts.
Ah, that's clever. It reframes a potential weakness into this narrative of dedication, growth, and proactivity, all powered by her listening journey.
Exactly. The sources call the outcome magical, not because she suddenly spoke flawless English, but because she didn't freeze. She didn't panic. She navigated the situation successfully.
And that night, reflecting on it all, she wrote that really powerful line in her notebook. Listening helped me hear the world. Now it's helping the world hear me.
It's a beautiful summation, isn't it? How developing this one seemingly internal skill, listening, directly unlocked her ability to interact, participate, and succeed out there in the real world. Her listening was literally helping her voice be heard.
And that newfound confidence, that success, it led to an even bigger opportunity, didn't it? Described in the next section, being selected for the Green City Exchange Program in London.
This was it. The ultimate test, you could say. A whole week in London, a new country, surrounded by new accents, the fast pace of a major city, real people everywhere, and absolutely no subtitles.
The excitement must have been huge, but the fear, I imagine that was definitely still there too.
Oh, for sure. This was applying everything she had learned in a completely uncontrolled, unpredictable environment.
So how did she prepare for that?
She channeled that fear into very specific preparation. She listened to podcasts specifically about airports and travel English. She actively searched online for things like British accent listening practice. She watched London travel vlogs again, but this time she used a clever technique.
Oh, what was that?
Whispering common phrases to herself.
Whispering. Why whispering?
It helps internalize the sound and the rhythm of the phrases in a really low-pressure way. Things like, excuse me, where is gate B12? Or, does this train go to King's Cross? It's like doing a quiet rehearsal in your head and mouth.
That's actually really practical. And her preparation was immediately put to the test right there at the airport, wasn't it?
Yes, the sources describe that classic, challenging listening situation. The loud, fast, echoing flight delay announcement over the PA system.
Oh, yeah, those are hard, even in your native language sometimes.
Exactly. But Leela understood it. She heard the crucial information, gate C22.
Under pressure with all that background noise, that must have felt absolutely incredible. A real surge of pride, I bet.
Absolutely. It was proof that her consistent practice had prepared her for the chaos of real-world listening. And she kept practicing, even on the plane, listening to the announcements, trying to guess the meaning of words in the in-flight movie from context.
And she wrote down some tips from this experience.
Yeah, her own practical travel listening tips. Listen to specific airport English beforehand. Repeat useful phrases quietly to yourself. Try to guess meaning from the situation if you miss a word. And crucially, Don't panic if you don't understand. Just ask politely for repetition.
Those are really solid, actionable tips for anyone traveling. So she lands in London and she's just immersed in it. All the fast pace, all the different accents.
She didn't understand everything. The sources are very clear about that. But she understood enough. And importantly, she now had the courage to use another crucial communication skill, asking for clarification. Could you say that again, please? Or, sorry, I didn't catch that.
How did people react when she did that?
The sources say people were generally kind and helpful, which just reinforces that communication is a two-way street, right? It's built on mutual effort, not on one person having perfect skills.
There's a lovely moment described, too, during a walk in Hyde Park.
Oh, yes. Someone she was with commented kind of impressed, "You really listen." And Leela's response was just perfect. Listening. It's been my way into the language.
That line just beautifully captures her entire journey, doesn't it? Listening wasn't just a technical skill for her. It was her key, her personal doorway into truly experiencing the language and connecting with the people who spoke it.
Exactly. By the end of that London trip, her confidence was apparently sky high. Not because she suddenly understood every single word, but because she no longer feared misunderstanding. She trusted her ears. She trusted the process she'd developed. She trusted herself.
Her summary after London says it all, really. Listening is not just a skill, it's a superpower. And now, it's mine. She had fully claimed it.
And with that superpower now firmly in her grasp, she felt this powerful desire to share what she'd learned, which led her to the incredible transformation described in the final chapters, turning from a listener into a teacher.
This is where her impact really starts to move beyond just her own personal progress, isn't it? The idea came to her to start her own podcast.
Slow English with Leela.
Right. And her core vision for it was so generous.
It really was. It was simple. To be the voice she herself had once needed when she was struggling. Speaking slowly, clearly, authentically, sharing her own struggles and breakthroughs, specifically for learners who felt lost and overwhelmed, just like she had. Her fundamental message was simple and powerful. You're not alone in this.
And the impact was immediate, wasn't it? And quite moving.
Yeah, she started receiving emails from listeners all over the world, people saying things like, "Your podcast really helped me," or that they could finally understand every word someone said in English, that she gave them hope. Her promise back to them was equally simple: I won't stop.
So what kind of content did she put on the podcast?
It really reflected her own journey. She shared her personal story, gave practical tips straight from her notebook lessons. Focus on the meaning, not every word. Use subtitles strategically, then take them away. The importance of gentle repetition, being patient with yourself.
And she read things aloud, too.
Yeah. Yes, she read simple stories, dialogues, explained common idioms, all in her signature calm, clear, kind voice. It was designed to be accessible and encouraging.
And her reach grew globally.
It did. Messages poured in from places like Japan, Turkey, Morocco, Vietnam. She was no longer just the listener. She was now someone that others were actively listening to. Hearing a voice message from a learner named Sam in Egypt, sharing his progress thanks to her podcast, really solidified that feeling for her. Wow, I'm actually helping people.
And she went back to her old notebook.
Yeah, and added a new tip that perfectly encapsulated this phase of her life. Become the voice you once needed. It's this beautiful feedback loop of learning, growing, and then giving back.
And this journey of helping others, it led to the next really big stage for her, an invitation to speak at the English Voices Conference.
Which was a huge deal. A massive live online event with literally thousands of learners tuning in from all over the world.
Public speaking is terrifying for most people, let alone in a second language to a huge audience like that.
Absolutely. The fear was intense, but she prepared meticulously. She practiced her talk aloud, timed herself, recorded herself listening back, but importantly, she also listened to other speakers. She listened for how they connected with their audience, how they conveyed warmth and clarity alongside their message.
Her notebook must have been full of reminders for herself.
Oh, yeah. Things like speak from the heart, slow down, be real, be brave. Remember, it's not about being perfect.
That fear was still there, though, right before, worrying about her accent, making mistakes.
Definitely. But she remembered a powerful quote and kind of made it her own mantra. Your accent tells a story, not of where you're weak, but where you're brave. She made a conscious decision right then to be proud of her voice, her journey, everything.
What a completely transformative perspective shift. So during the actual speech, how did it go? Did she connect?
She really did. She connected deeply with the audience by sharing her raw, honest story, mentioning Milo the cat, her trusty notebook, the struggles, the London trip, even the moment she cried when she first truly understood something complex.
And her core message.
It resonated so powerfully. Keep listening. One day, someone will listen to you. The chat during the live event reportedly just exploded with positive reactions, messages of support. And the tears she shed on screen this time were ones of pride and connection, not frustration.
That moment of shared vulnerability and ultimate triumph clearly struck a chord with so many people watching. The sources mentioned a specific message afterwards.
Yeah, from a listener who said they'd always been terrified to speak English, but hearing Leela's story, her honesty about the fear and the journey gave them real hope.
And Leela's reply was just perfect, wasn't it?
It really encapsulated her whole philosophy. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to listen and keep going. Your voice is on the way. It just reinforces that core idea that listening is the essential foundation for eventually finding your own voice.
And then came a moment that must have felt incredibly surreal, like coming full circle.
The invitation to guest teach at her old language school.
Wow. Returning to the very place where she first felt that intense listening struggle. But this time, standing at the front of the room as the teacher.
Exactly. But her teaching philosophy wasn't about drilling grammar rules. It was about teaching listening as attention, patience, and love.
She used her own experiences, right? Her notebook lessons.
Absolutely. She shared relatable analogies like comparing listening practice to watering a plant. Consistent, gentle care makes it grow.
And when students asked her the same questions she once had about not understanding everything, about being scared to speak.
Her advice came straight from her own hard-won experience. Be kind to yourself, trust that your ears will adapt, and listen to yourself kindly by recording your own voice sometimes, focusing on progress, not perfection.
The sources also describe a fun listening game she played with them.
Yeah, playing stories at different speeds. The key wasn't about getting everything right immediately, but about laughing together at the funny misunderstandings and cheering for the small victories. It created this really joyful, low-pressure learning environment.
And the students responded well to that.
They blossomed. They grew in confidence, started finding their own joy in listening. Some even got inspired to create their own mini podcasts, like one student's charming English on My Bike series. Leela was still listening intently, but now she was listening to their questions, their efforts, their emerging voices and dreams.
And the gift they gave her at the end, that blue notebook.
Yeah, inscribed with the words, "For Leela, the girl who listened her way to courage." It's just incredibly moving, isn't it? A physical token of her impact and her journey.
And her own addition to that inscription.
Teaching others to listen has taught me to hear my own strength. Just perfect.
Her journey didn't stop there, though. It expanded even further, taking her globally again. with an invitation to represent a program in Kyoto, Japan.
Right. A completely new culture, new students with different linguistic backgrounds, different challenges, teaching listening in an environment where English wasn't commonly heard in daily life.
How does she adapt her approach there?
She focused less on decoding every single word and more on teaching listening, as feeling the rhythm of the language, catching the tone of voice, connecting with the underlying emotion through sound itself.
She used some creative activities too, I believe.
Yes, like the box of stories. She'd read short descriptive cards aloud and have the students just close their eyes and listen, trying to imagine the scene without the pressure of catching every vocabulary item. The realization among the students was profound. Listening wasn't just for grammar practice, it was for life, for understanding the world.
So it was about engaging through sound, acting out simple scenes, sharing songs they loved, making listening a rich sensory experience rather than just an academic exercise.
Exactly. And she noticed the same pattern. When students started listening without fear, their speaking ability and overall confidence naturally began to improve.
There was a beautiful moment during a traditional tea ceremony, too.
Yes, which is often conducted mostly in silence. Sharing the experience with a local woman named Yumi, Leela had this realization that listening happens even without words. As she noted later, in silence, I still feel meaning. She understood that language is also about rhythm, emotion, presence, not just the explicit sounds.
And she encouraged this broader kind of listening.
She did. She gave the students listening diaries and asked them simply to notice and write about the sounds around them each day, starting with the prompt, "Today I listened to the world. It spoke without shouting."
And Yumi's gift to her.
A small audio recorder with a message Yumi had recorded in her own voice. "Thank you, Miss Leela. I listen more bravely now." It perfectly captured that deep emotional connection that listening can create, reinforcing for Leela that listening truly connects hearts across cultures and languages.
All these incredible experiences, the personal struggle, the breakthroughs, the teaching, the global connections, they all culminated in her next major project, didn't they? Writing the listening book.
Yeah, and she envisioned it very specifically, not as a dry academic textbook, but as a kind of love letter to your ears.
A love letter to your ears. I like
Right.
that.
A book that told her own story, shared her hard-earned lessons, gathered her memories, and maybe even the voices of others she'd met. It focused on the feeling, the journey, the humanity of learning rather than just rules and exercises.
What kind of things were in it?
Chapters on facing the fear and finding the joy in listening. Mini stories with audio recorded at different speeds, slow, natural, even whispered sometimes. Little try this activities, encouraging active, repeated, playful listening. Even QR codes linking to other voices, other sounds, other resources.
So really interactive, personal, and gentle.
Exactly. And the message on the very last page was this simple, gentle invitation to the reader. If you feel lost in English, start with the sound of your breath. You are already listening. Now listen forward.
That's beautiful. And the book's impact.
Incredible. She made it available free online, and it reached learners in something like 42 countries. The messages she received were deeply personal. I cried reading this. It's like my heart finally has a friend in English. I'm not afraid to listen anymore.
It just showed the universal resonance of her story and her whole approach to listening.
Absolutely. And this led to yet another full circle moment. Being invited to speak at a global conference specifically on the theme of learning through listening. She began her talk with that opening line from her own book.
And there was that touching interaction with the little girl in the audience afterwards, holding her own notebook, just like Leela started with.
Yes, a perfect echo of Leela's own beginnings. And the little girl showed Leela what she'd written in her notebook.
What did it say?
Dear English, I will listen to you every day because Leela said you are kind.
Wow, that says everything, doesn't it? It shows how Leela's journey, her reframing of the struggle, transformed English from this source of frustration and fear into something perceived as kind, approachable, full of possibility, simply by changing how we listen to it and how we listen to ourselves learning it.
Ultimately, Leela's path shows us that listening became her personal language of possibility. It opened doors she never imagined, connected her deeply to the world, and empowered her to amplify not just her own voice, but the voices and hopes of countless other learners too. Her journey is just this powerful testament to the quiet strength we can all find just by opening our ears.
So let's try and quickly pull out the absolute key takeaways from Layla's remarkable deep dive into listening based on these sources. It really started, didn't it, with clearly defining the problem, articulating the struggle, and turning it into a concrete mission that gave her direction.
Then finding manageable content those stories and truly embracing the power of repetition. Not seeing it as a chore, but as vital ear training that builds that muscle memory and crucially builds confidence.
And intentionally surrounding yourself with the language didn't just mean studying more, it meant weaving it into the everyday fabric of your life through lots of small, consistent changes, making it ambient.
Making that absolutely crucial mental shift away from needing to understand every single word,
Right.
towards focusing on catching the overall meaning, the gist, and learning to trust your intuition more.
Using more challenging content later on, like podcasts, real world conversations, not as pass fail tests, but as gyms for your ears, opportunities to strengthen your processing speed and adaptability.
And really understanding that listening isn't just this passive skill you do alone. It's deeply connected to speaking, to connecting with other people. One feeds the other.
Practicing self compassion throughout the process, being kind to yourself when you inevitably don't understand something, having the courage to ask for help or repetition, and remembering that mistakes aren't failures, they're just necessary steps on the path.
And ultimately, I think seeing listening not just as a skill to be acquired, but as a kind of superpower, one that builds courage, connects you profoundly to the world, and surprisingly, perhaps, helps your own voice finally be heard.
It's really a journey from feeling lost and overwhelmed by sound to finding your own comfortable place within the language.
Oh, right. So, based on Leila's incredible story and the rich sources you shared with us, here's maybe a final thought to leave you, the listener, with. Something for you to perhaps ponder for your own journey.
Okay.
How can you start listening forward in your own English learning? Beyond just decoding words, what new sounds, what new voices, what different perspectives, and maybe what beautiful, unexpected, unwritten endings might your ears discover when you commit to listening with that same curiosity, patience, and kindness that Leela eventually found.